It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends up, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Talking about what's going on in sports. Shortened edition for this hour, at least, for the Full Court Press. Utah Jazz on the road, taking on the Boston Celtics this evening. Pre-game coverage will begin at 5:20 on the Utah Jazz radio network. Tip-off at 5:30. So, abbreviated show for us here on the Full Court Press on a Friday afternoon. But there's still time for you to weigh in if you'd like. Chime in. And love to get your predictions specifically about the Final Four. San Diego State, Mountain West representative in the Final Four. How do you like their chances of advancing to the championship game and maybe even winning the whole thing? 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. Even looking at the weekend with other things that are going on, but like to look at your predictions for the Final Four and the championship game. Ryan Odom, by the way, officially introduced at VCU today, and reading some of the reports about it, seems like, when he was reading between the lines, feels like he felt he had a higher ceiling opportunity at VCU than at Utah State. And talking about getting VCU into the Final Four and deep into the NCAA tournament, whereas at Utah State, it was about getting Utah State to the tournament and consistently to the tournament.
There's some truth to that. We've seen VCU get really high seeds before. I think I have to double check this. They've gotten, let's see, what's their highest seed during the Shaka Smart years? They were able to get like 5 and 7 seeds. Twice they got a 5 seed, once they got a 7 seed. That was right before Shaka Smart left. So there's a world in which, they can do that. And they have the name recognition now because of that run where they were really good. They were really high in the AP poll. There's a world in which they could do that. Utah State hasn't done that. There's really only one team in the Mountain West, I think, right now that has enough name recognition to get those really high seeds. That's San Diego State. New Mexico kind of used to be like that, but they've kind of fallen out over the last 5-6 years. And so, there is probably some truth to that, where VCU has a better chance, and also, Odom might be a better coach there because of his, connections. It'll be easier for him to do that than it was at Utah State.
He's not so much a fish out of water here.
Yeah. So
had success on the court, but long term with recruiting and everything else, was it looking like he was going to be a long-term fit here? Well, obviously he didn't feel that way.
Yeah. Now, could Utah State and could Odom have built up Utah State into the same thing VCU could become? Well, yeah. He could have done that, but he chose to do it closer to home. Maybe it's a little easier for him, so I don't necessarily blame him. That's why I'm not really that upset that you can call it a lateral move to VCU. It's another mid-major school. It's one with a bit more tournament history, but he's getting paid more. He's at a more exclusive, pretty much, they're known for basketball. They're a basketball school. So it fits him better along with getting a pay raise. So it's not like USF where, as I said, it's just him completely lowering his standards.
Right.
To where I don't know what he would have said in an introductory press conference, because all of it would have basically been a lie.
Unless it's, no, you guys haven't been great, but I'm here to turn things around.
Yeah, that's about the only thing he could have said, because he couldn't have said anything about, program history. fan base, anything.
Culture.
It's like, if you wanted to talk about great fan base and great culture, he'd been like, yeah, you left a better one. So, but here there's more things that he can say and have it actually be true. Whether or not it's completely true that VCU has a better chance of getting to the Final Four than Utah State, maybe. But, VCU did make the Final Four actually one year. So, I guess in a way it has to be true.
Yeah.
Because it's happened at VCU and not happened at Utah State.
That's what, that was Shaka Smart with his Rising Star.
Yeah, that was like his second year.
Getting to some of your texts, looking forward to the Final Four coming up this weekend, 9315. I want them to win the whole thing so USU gets more money. Actually, it doesn't matter now. There are no more NCAA units distributed for the Final Four or championship, so it doesn't matter if they win or not as far as how much extra money the Mountain West is going to get. But at least the sentiment is good, representing the Mountain West. I'm up for that. 6391 texting in, rooting for UConn. If they win, I win the office pool.
There you go. Good reasons.
Yes.
Good reasons. I've already lost. I stopped keeping track. I fill out a bracket, and then I haven't followed my bracket at all. I just maybe check back at the end and see, all right, what place did I take? Because I always place like 4th or 5th in my family bracket, which usually only has about 4 or 5 entries. I probably did okay this year, but I wasn't my brother who picked Purdue.
He was shut down pretty early.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I had any teams remaining after the Elite Eight. I don't think I even made it that far.
Yeah, I probably had only a handful in the Sweet 16. So if I pick 1 or 2 in the Elite Eight, that's usually a good year for me. I'm just horrible at picking games. I'm just not good at it. Never been good. Maybe if I really tried super hard, I'd get slightly worse.
9315. Boy, the voice to text, I assume that's what it is. Otherwise, spelling needs some help here. I'll just read it as it came into us. I in herring. No money for USU. It change what I said. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So the teams in the Final Four, you got UConn versus Miami, SDSU versus FAU. And looking at their path to get there. So UConn beat Iona, 13 seed Iona, 5 seed St. Mary's, 8 seed Arkansas, 3rd seed Gonzaga. And you look at their overall, add them all up, average of their scores, about 82 points on offense, giving up about 59 on defense, and facing and average all the seeds. The average seed strength, 7 1/4 for UConn. For Miami, they've defeated 12th seeded Drake, 4th seeded Indiana, number 1 seed Houston, number 2 seed Texas, and kind of similar, about 81 points to 70 points, so giving up a lot more than UConn did. But their average seed was 4.75, so much different, much more challenging path to get to the Final Four for Miami. San Diego State defeating 12th seeded Charleston, 13th Furman, number 1 Alabama, number 6 Creighton, and the Aztecs had the lowest scoring output of all the Final Four teams, about 66.5 points, but had the best defense in giving up just over 57 points per game. Average seed for them was 8. And then FAU, beating number 8 Memphis, number 16 Farley Dickinson, number 4 Tennessee, number 3 Kansas State. About 71 points on average what they scored, 66.5 giving up on defense. Average seed about 7 3/4. So UConn clearly the most dominant team in the field with the widest margin of victory, but San Diego State the best defensive team in the field.
Yeah, and I think the betting odds agree with this that San Diego State and UConn are the 2 favorites. UConn, the overall favorite, San Diego State just behind. I think they're both favored in their games. And I think on the championship odds, it's UConn like minus 150, and then San Diego State's like plus 200, I think. Whatever those numbers mean. I'm not even sure I know what those numbers mean, but they mean that UConn is the favorite and San Diego State's not too far behind. And for a couple different reasons. I mean, UConn's been kind of the most impressive team, as you said. Pretty good resume throughout the tournament. But San Diego State, they're playing defense in the kind of way that makes old men say defense wins championships.
Right, and defense travels.
Yeah. So it brings out all the cliches about defense, and San Diego State's out to prove them all right. And they may very well. I think it's going to give them a really good chance to win this whole thing. The question is, like, how much of it is you played a couple of double-digit seeds? They did get a real defensive show against Alabama. They really proved it, that it wasn't just – but is that a one-off? Like, is FAU going to come out and have a good game? Like, at some point, defense doesn't always work.
Still got to score points to win.
Yeah, and you do have to score points to win, and they're not the greatest offensive team. But the question is any team going to be the one that breaks the dam? Doesn't have to happen. It's just you would think it happens eventually. And when some team finally figures out San Diego State's defense, then they're going to lose. They're not going to have anything to punch back with. So we'll see if it's FAU. We'll see if it's UConn. We thought it was going to be Alabama. It wasn't them. But if nobody figures out the Aztecs and their defense and isn't able to score more than 55 points, San Diego State's going to win. If they hold their next two opponents to 57 points, as they've been doing, they're going to win the whole tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, they held Charleston to 57, Furman to 52. Alabama did score 64, but then Creighton to 56. So they're not giving up very much at all.
Yeah.
And FAU has almost every game they've played has been a very narrow, very tight game, almost entirely all of them.
Yeah. So you'd expect a tight game, and if FAU wins, I expect it to be a narrow margin of victory. But I could see San Diego State winning this game by 2, or I could see them winning it by 7 or 8.
Oh yeah.
I think it's very possible. Those are probably your 3 most likely scenarios. I think is just narrow FAU win, narrow San Diego State, and then after that, I'd say a comfortable San Diego State win. I don't really see FAU blowing this one open.
No.
I just don't, especially because there's just a low point total, because that's the way San Diego State games are going. They dictate their pace and their point total. It's going to be a 61-59 game. That's what they're going to do. So FAU can either win 61-59 or they can lose 61-59.
Couple texts coming through, 6391. If I do win it with UConn, that's 2 out of 3 years for me in the office pool. Wow. I'll need you to fill my bracket out, 6391.
My brother texted me to remind me that despite the fact that he picked Purdue, he is beating me in our family bracket pool.
His overall is still better.
Yeah.
It's funny. 9315. Don't want SDSU in the final because their fans will be hard to deal with.
That's part of the reason I don't really want San Diego State to win, because their fans will be unbearable. They're already borderline. Granted, most San Diego State fans I've dealt with individually are actually pretty cool people.
It's just they have a crass social media account.
Well, I have them blocked, so I don't see them anyway. And I would highly recommend all of you just block them and ignore them.
Yeah.
Because my life is so much better in not seeing all the crap they put out. But there are some others that follow along that line. But if you're talking to San Diego State fans on an individual basis, they're pretty cool people. But there are some that are unbearable, that are kind of in that Boise State, like, what on earth are you doing basing your entire personality around a school?
But it gives a lot of legitimacy to the Mountain West. I mean, their run already has.
Yeah.
But getting it, that would be the first basketball championship for the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah.
And in an era where there's been a lot of good basketball. I mean, if you're a prospective coach looking to come to Utah State, I can come to a conference where they have a national champion, or at least a Final Four team, and they send multiple teams to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it means a lot. When coaches are moving up from smaller schools to bigger schools, if you're trying to attract guys, we've mentioned a couple of them. I mentioned, Danny Sprinkle of Montana State. It's like he's been to back-to-back tournaments, but he had to win the conference tournament to do it. We want to come to Utah State, and, okay, maybe if you don't win, let's say you take second place, make it to the conference tournament,
or even fourth place.
Yeah, fourth place, make it to the conference tournament championship game, but hey, you still made the tournament because you had a good season and people actually recognized that your team was good and wasn't just biased against it because you're in the Big Sky. And the fact that you quintuple her salary.
And you stay in the West.
Yeah, and other things.
Those a lot of other things.
Those are the benefits. Those are the things that can attract a coach.
Okay, less than 30 seconds, Jason. Who's going to be in the championship game on Monday night?
San Diego State and Miami, because I'm a rebel. I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna take it.
Going against the grain.
Just taking a guess. I'd say San Diego State and UConn, but I can't predict what's predictable, so I'm just gonna go with that.
All right. I also like the Aztecs, but I am going to go with UConn. They've just been so dominant, and they look like the best team playing their best basketball right now through the tournament. So we'll see what happens, and you'll be able to hear it all here on The Fan on Saturday afternoon.